Here is the garage, which will eventually get lined and skimmed and waterproofed. There's a little hole in the floor there to go under the car. Get that space in here. I'll get all damp proofed. Well, that's a good size. Workbenches here, which are already there. Workbench, storage. Perfect space. So here is the first version of the train room that I've kind of worked on, and you can see that I've put a door in the wall there on the short wall, thinking that would do as an access, but it would involve more work, whereas if I close up the end of the garage and put the door in, that would make more sense. In version 2 of the train room plan, I've removed the door from that wall and I've put storage units in the bottom left hand corner where Angel's Ridge Railroad will go. Now on the other side of the room we've got the J shape where I can run trains, whether it's end to end or roundy I will discuss that. And then I've got a modelling table at the bottom end where the garage door used to be, which will be bricked in, and I'll have an access door put in there. So plenty of room for storage, plenty of room for trains. Now let's discuss the pros and cons of end-to-end versus roundy. Welcome back to the Angels Modelling and Railways. So yeah, end-to-end versus roundy. The ideas that I have and the benefits, pros and cons, what I believe kind of works in the favour for someone that's into model railways and the hobby. Now roundies, straight off the bat, a lot of people don't like them. They don't believe that it's prototypical due to the fact that the trains kind of come round always going in the one direction and never travelling back the way. I get that, but also it's toy trains. It's just little toy trains at the end of the day. And what we do with them is put our own personality and our own creativity into the hobby. That's what we do. We are inspired by others. A lot of great YouTubers and modelers out there that share a bucket load of information, techniques and ideas that we all glean and benefit from. Now the best way to advance yourself in the hobby is to find what you like about it, not what other people believe you should like. Oh, you should like this, or I like this, so maybe you'll like it as well. You do what you want, really. It's always rule one. If you want to run a high-speed train on a layout that looks like it's the 1940s, then that's up to you. You do that. If it brings you pleasure and happiness, that's what it's all about. And when it comes to roundies, they're a great way of having a train just travelling round in a loop, just moving constantly, hearing the clickety-clack of the wheels and watching it. And it really does, in certain aspects, soothe you and let you see all your stock moving. The fact that you've got the nice locomotives and you've just bought this brand new locomotive or a second-hand one, or you've got a load of coaches or freight stock or whatever, you just run them for the sake of making up any train you want. If you want 4 coaches and 20 wagons behind it and 4 brake vans, then do it. That's up to you. If you want to see everything all moving at once and cram it all together, then do it. If you just want to have 1 locomotive and 1 wagon and 1 brake van, then do it. It's a case of just finding the pleasure in the hobby, and roundies offer that by just varying up your stock, having passenger trains running, freight trains running, and you buy your stock and you make it up and you have it go round. The advantage of a layout like Angel's Ridge is that it has sidings. So if I choose to switch out the oil, the freight, the logging, the merchandise, the team track, the engine shed, I've got all these different areas where I can then shunt and move my wagons and start kind of planning out ideas of what's in the train and what needs to be in there, what's in there and then needs to be on the train that's going outgoing. And the way I do it is usually run 5 or 6 loops to simulate length of time, and then I'll pull the train in and I'll break it up, and I'll take stock off and I'll put stock on, make up a fresh train, run that round another 6 loops, then I'll break that up and start moving out the stock from in here. So with a roundie like this, I can still do shunting, switching, and I can move out the different sidings according to my plan and how my buildings work with the freight station, the storage and the barrel maker and stuff. I've got ideas of what stock should be in there and what should come out. Whether it's prototypical or not doesn't really matter. Another roundie is NAM 68. It's a wonderful roundie. It's a great way for most folk to get into the hobby. You buy your starter pack from Pico, gives you a look with a siding, and then you can just buy some little cheap bogies and chassis and you can run them, put 3D printed bodies on them. It's all 00 scale, 1:76, so it means you can get a chance of putting all the vehicles and everything you want on. And then if you upgrade from your small roundie, that you can cram a lot of detail in and get really your skills start developing in such a small footprint, because you've got a few buildings to paint, you've got some sidings and track to paint, you've got structures to build, some lights to put in, but it's not like 50, 60 lights, it's not like 30 buildings and you've got a whole task ahead of you because you've made this massive layout and you've got all that to kind of detail and weather. Whereas something small, especially narrow gauge like 009, it really gives you the benefit of perfecting your skills and developing your skills. And I felt mine came on leaps and bounds just doing that very small area, because I had a jungle one side, a city on the other with a water feature, and then you've got the 2 sides to kind of develop your skills, your scenery side and your kind of environmental, residential, commercial side. This is mostly rural, so again this is a mix of both, but there's still more scenery and stuff to happen with that. And when I move into the garage, that's where the end-to-end versus roundie comes in. I've got a large space. People are going to say, you should have this over here and that over there and a helix here and that, and 3 levels and 3 tiers, and it looks amazing, and I love that people can do that and have a passion for working in that sort of size. But what I like to do is work in various scales. So the last thing I want is so many square feet of just 00 gauge or just HO scale, because I've got 009, which is your 1:76, I believe. Also use 1:72 and 1:87 on NAM 68. So you can vary scales, you don't have to be completely restricted to that scale in order to still create a sense of realism. Same here, this is pretty much all 1:87 HO scale. So that is something that I might extend and expand on. But when I get into the garage, I'm not going to turn this into a massive layout. All I'm going to do is possibly lift the corners up. These bends here are sub 15 inches, so I want to make them wider and come down in a loop. And then that way I've got longer locomotives I can run through here, especially steam locomotives that I want to get that won't go down these bends. So I've got the space to make this wider and possibly scenic the other side, maybe take the mountains out and figure out a whole area over here that I can then develop as part of Angel Ridge Railroad. Ongoing work in progress, all that jazz, but I'll get to that. But I will have a space in the garage to develop that. But on the other side, where I originally was having the tables running around and thinking of doing like maybe a folded dog bone or something, I've kind of dispersed with that idea because I've got the large version of NAM 68 coming up, no N30 scale. That's going to fit in there somewhere. So I also want the space to maybe do an end-to-end. That's where you have more puzzles involved and more thought process put into exactly how it's going to go. With a roundie, you can put it down, stick a station in, a couple of buildings in, you can call it anywhere, and it will just do its thing, and it's simple and easy to get going. But with an end-to-end, you really need to think of all the businesses you're going to have, all the industries you're going to have, what they relate to, what stock you need that relates to them, what you have, what you need, and then come up with an idea on that. And I think with a kind of end-to-end layout is where I'm going to go, with a kind of large one in the garage, and I'm still considering going in 00 gauge on that, and doing a kind of a Scottish whisky distillery thing. I've seen layouts, many layouts that do whisky distilleries on them, and they look fantastic. Some of them, I think Longmorn Distillery is one of the most impressive ones I've seen. These guys have got lots of scratch built structures. My original whisky distillery layout was just glorified Metcalfe buildings, so all that's getting patched. There's not going to be any structures like that on it. I pretty much want to scratch build every structure related to the industries and the areas of Scotland and recreate an end-to-end interesting kind of switching, shunting layout. That's one of my ideas, using what I've learned from a lot of Americans and Canadians and how they create shelf layouts and the way they run their industries. I want to do something kind of Scotsonified along that line and make it kind of interesting. So end to end involves a lot more preparation and thought and consideration of what you're doing and track planning and exactly how much stock you can fit in each siding, and you just don't throw down a length of track and hope it works. All this needs calculated properly, and that's the work I'm willing to put into it, and I'll share on the channel my successes and my failures. So yeah, end to end works if you want to get your brain working and really kind of push your skills. Roundies work if you're just quite happy running trains and you can basically throw down any location and anything on it, and you can get it done quickly, but it won't have the same sort of kind of puzzle involved in it. Even though I do have this here in Angels Ridge, I do fancy something a little bit more complicated once I do build a kind of proper switching, shunting layout in the garage. So yeah, roundies rule and end to ends rock. It's just dependent on your ability, your skill set and space that you've got. And as you saw previously, I was in the corner of my living room with this, as it was basically the same but larger than Angel's Share shunting layout that I had, and that I really enjoyed, and I've done a lot of switching and shunting on that and spent many hours on it. Not as much switching and shunting on this, more running trains in the loop, which I also enjoy. So again, it's down to you. It's what you want to do and how you explore the hobby, but it's about getting the best out of yourself and meeting no one's expectations bar your own. That's it, pure and simple. I don't compare my work to anybody else's because it would fall short in many comparisons, but what I do compare it to is how good I was before I done that. Have I got better with each building, with each weathering job I do on my stock? I weather all my stock. Locomotives, the structures, I scratch build the structures. I mean, that's completely scratch built. Bit dusty, as you can see. Not had the major clean that NAM 68 got, but yeah, scratch built and solid, including kits. So it's a nice mix, kits and scratch built in an area like this really works, because what they do are the kind of placeholders until you go, right, I'm going to pull that out and I'm going to scratch build my own version, maybe put a 2-story storage building there, and then that gives you the opportunity to kind of develop your skills. But these are great placeholders in the meantime. So hopefully it's gave you some food for thought. If you're interested and you're just getting into the hobby and you're curious about roundies versus end to end, do a little investigation and see what kind of floats your boat. Always just check out videos of the subject and see what people do with it, and if you like what they do, then by all means recreate your own version of it, but make it your own, not theirs. So yeah, put your opinions, comments down below of end to end versus roundy. Are you in the roundy camp? Are you out the roundy camp? Or are you strictly shelf layout end to end only? But thanks for tuning in. I'll stick some more video on at the end of this, and I'll catch you in the next one. I saw this image on Pinterest. I really like the mountain scenery on either side of the layout. It looks really good, and it's inspired me not to go HO scale with my next kind of long end-to-end layout, but to go 00 gauge and again do the West Highland line type thing in Scotland, with mountains either side of the track, tunnels leading into it, and an area to switch out a whisky distillery. Now, not just going completely with this feature, I also like this idea. This is like a lake, or a loch as it were, and I would like to incorporate this kind of idea into the mountain scene with the trees and all the scenery that surrounds the whisky distillery. And being next to a loch makes sense because that's where they would get their water supply for the whisky, as it were. So in the mouth of the loch would look really cool with a bridge running across it. So that's my idea so far. Here's a screenshot of some of the ideas that I've been looking at. Whisky distilleries next to lochs and bodies of water. That's what I'm looking to do.